In the lush and vibrant village of Nico, nestled in the heart of the Igbo region, life was a tapestry of tradition and cultural wealth. Each corner of the village spoke of ancient customs and timeless beauty, with the morning light casting a golden hue over the grass-thatched houses against the backdrop of green hills and distant fields. Adana stood on the threshold of her modest home, gazing at the sprawling beauty of the village. The golden morning light made the scene warm and serene. Despite the picturesque view, Adana's heart was a mix of pride and anxiety. At just 20 years old, she was deeply rooted in her community's traditions but found herself trapped in the web of familial expectations and personal desires. Her husband, Ekna, was a man renowned in the village for his honesty and warmth. His loyalty to Adana was immense, but he was caught between the delicate balance of love and duty to his parents, Ezenwa and Nenka. Their presence was a constant reminder of traditional values in their lives. Ezenwa, with his deep-set eyes and silver beard, was a pillar of tradition. His authority was felt in every decision, and his words carried the weight of years of cultural heritage. Nenka, his wife, had a stern demeanor, with signs of hard work and familial dedication etched on her face. Nenka's critiques of Adana's cooking and domestic tasks often felt like thorns in an otherwise smooth path. In the early days of their marriage, Adana embraced these traditions wholeheartedly. She devoted herself to cooking, wore traditional attire, and participated enthusiastically in ceremonies. But as months passed, Nenka's constant criticism began to wear her down. Persistent comments about the food, unnecessary advice on child-rearing, and misleading hints about her role in the household became burdensome. The more Adana tried, the more she felt like a failure in their eyes. The household environment grew tense. Adana started to feel isolated. While Ekna was sympathetic to her plight, his efforts seemed to deepen the rift between Adana and his parents. Each day felt like a balancing act, with Adana trying to maintain peace while constantly feeling encircled by her in-laws. Chinu, Adana's childhood best friend, noticed the strain in Adana's voice and the fatigue in her eyes. During a conversation under a large baobab tree, Chinu's wisdom and insight provided Adana with solace and clarity. Chinu first suggested that perhaps Adana should consider a different living arrangement. "Adana, I see how this is affecting you," Chinu said one evening, her voice full of concern. "Maybe it's time to talk to Ekna about moving out. You need a space of your own, and it's clear that living with your in-laws is breaking you down." The suggestion resonated deeply with Adana. The idea of having a place free from constant criticism was both alluring and frightening. She loved Ekna and certainly did not want to appear ungrateful or disrespectful, but the thought of escaping the constant pressure was tempting. It was an internal conflict. She wanted to honor cultural values but also wished to preserve her well-being. As days passed, the home situation worsened. Nenka's comments became sharper, and Adana's patience began to wear thin. The emotional strain, coupled with the responsibilities of managing the household and caring for the child, became overwhelming. Efforts to maintain peace with her in-laws seemed increasingly futile. One evening, after another harsh criticism from Nenka about the cleanliness of the house, Adana found herself with tears in her eyes. The feeling of being trapped in a role that did not align with her personal values had become an unbearable burden. She tried to be the ideal wife and daughter-in-law, but the more she tried, the more she felt she was losing herself. The rift between Adana and Ekna grew as the pressure mounted. Although Ekna loved and supported her, he was torn between his duty to his parents and his desire to make his wife happy. His attempts at reconciliation only seemed to heighten Adana's isolation and frustration. Each argument left both feeling deprived of compromise and support. One evening, during one of their escalating arguments, Adana overheard Nenka talking to a neighbor. The conversation was filled with criticisms about Adana's ability to respect her elders and manage the home. The public nature of the discussion felt like a betrayal, filling Adana with a mix of anger and sadness. Turning point. That night, Adana urgently spoke to Ekna. "We need to talk about moving out," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I can't live like this anymore. It's breaking me. Ekna's face reflected deep internal conflict. He loved Adana deeply but was struggling with the fear of abandoning his parents and disrupting the family dynamics. He had always been taught that family should stay united, but he could no longer ignore the pressure. I understand, Ekna finally said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. But how do we do it without hurting everyone? This conversation marked a turning point. Both Adana and Ekna knew that change was necessary, but the path forward was fraught with emotional challenges and difficult decisions. Adana's heart was heavy with the burden of her happiness and cultural expectations. As they stayed up that night, their minds were filled with possibilities for the future. The dream of a peaceful, independent life was within reach, but it meant challenging long-standing traditions and family expectations. For the first time, Adana felt a glimmer of hope that change might be possible. The relationship between Adana and Ekna grew increasingly strained. What began as a minor rift had now turned into a deep chasm filled with misunderstandings and unspoken anger. The atmosphere in their home, once filled with the warmth of their love, was now tense and argumentative. This all came to a head on a particular day. Adana spent the morning preparing a traditional meal for a family gathering. The aroma of spices and cooking meat filled the house, but the atmosphere was anything but festive. Ninka's critical gaze was always present, continually commenting on Adana's cooking. When Adana set the table, Ninka scrutinized every detail. "The meat is overcooked," Ninka said dismissively. "And the curry is too spicy. How will our guests enjoy it if it's not properly prepared?" Adana's face turned red with anger, but she kept her tone calm. "I cooked it exactly the way you taught me, Mother Ninka. If something is wrong, please let me know how to correct it." Ninka's attitude softened slightly, but her voice still carried acidity. "It's not about the recipe, it's about the care you put into it. You should always pay attention to the little details." The comments felt like blows, but Adana tried to smile and continued with her preparations. The gathering was meant to celebrate a local festival, a time when family came together to honor their traditions and enjoy each other's company. However, for Adana, it felt like another opportunity to highlight her failures. Ekna, feeling the growing tension, tried to mediate. He attempted to soothe the situation with reassuring words, but his efforts seemed to only increase the pressure. In his attempts to balance support for both his wife and his parents, the distance between him and Adana widened. His failure to fully support his wife made Adana feel insecure and isolated. The festival, with its colorful dances and joyful songs, was a complete contrast to the turmoil in the house. The community celebrated with enthusiasm, their voices rising in harmonious choruses, but Adana felt disconnected from the joy. The turning point came when Azinwa made an unexpected announcement. He decided to host a large family event to mark the traditional occasion and asked Adana to play a significant role. This request, meant to honor traditions, added more pressure to Adana's already stressed state. During the planning stages, Adana disagreed with Ninka on every detail. Arguments became more frequent and intense, echoing throughout the house. Adana felt like a guest in her own home, facing constant scrutiny and criticism. One evening, as Adana and Ekna sat in their living room, the weight of their arguments hung in the air. The conversation turned to the upcoming event, and Adana's anger erupted. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "I feel like I'm constantly facing judgment and criticism. No matter how hard I try, it's never enough." Ekna looked at her with a mix of sympathy and helplessness. "I know it's difficult," he said softly, "but what can we do? My parents are old, and their ways are traditional. They expect us to uphold these customs." Adana's eyes filled with tears. "But what about my feelings? My happiness? I feel like I'm losing myself trying to fit into a mold that doesn't work for me." The conversation reached a heavy point, and Adana's distress was laid bare. Ekna's failure to balance support between his wife and parents was evident. The emotional strain on their marriage felt unbearable, and their relationship reached a fragile state. As the family event approached, the tension reached a peak. Adana faced a public argument with Ninka. At a specific moment, Ninka made a critical comment about Adana's ability as a wife. This comment, made in front of several neighbors, turned the public argument into a final blow. Adana's emotions exploded. "I've tried to be the best wife I can," she said, her voice rising. "But no matter what I do, it's never enough. I'm tired of this criticism and contempt." The argument had garnered the attention of the entire gathering, and the atmosphere shifted from celebratory to painful. The public nature of the dispute forced Ekna to confront the reality of the situation. His hopes of supporting both his wife and parents seemed increasingly difficult and unattainable. Later that night, Adana and Ekna had a long and emotional discussion. The stress and difficulties in their marriage were exposed, and they both realized the importance of the decision they had to make. The idea of moving out, once a distant thought, now felt like a necessary step to save their marriage. Facing the issue directly was a significant moment. Although still hurt and uncertain, Adana saw a glimmer of hope in a new beginning. Ekna also began to realize how much the ongoing conflicts had burdened their marriage. As they began preparing for the move, Adana and Ekna faced a mix of hope and anxiety. The idea of a new home and new beginning offered a refreshing prospect, but practical matters and emotional consequences were worrisome. The preparation process was filled with practical tasks and emotional negotiations. Adana and Ekna worked together to find a suitable house, considering their budget and family needs. The process was both exciting and stressful, as they focused on the possibilities of a new beginning while the thought of leaving their old home was painful. After finding a new home, Adana and Ekna started planning the move. Transferring all their belongings to the new location and considering the financial implications was a challenge, but their decision was firm and determined. Leaving their old home was an emotional moment. Adana and Ekna tried to preserve the memories of their previous house, where they had spent the early years of their marriage. Every room, every wall, and every corner told its own story, and leaving it was a painful process. Moving to the new house was not an easy decision. Adana and Ikena's old home and the people around them were close to their hearts. Chainul was Adana's childhood friend, with whom she had shared many memorable moments. Whenever Adana felt lonely in her new home, she would think of Chainul and silently relive the moments they had spent together. Chainul's laughter, the wisdom in her words, and her friendship had left an indelible mark on Adana's heart. On the other hand, Ikena often thought of his old friend, Chima. Chima was his close companion, with whom Ikena had shared many difficult times. Chima's empathy and advice had always been a strong support for Ikena. After moving to the new house, Ikena deeply missed Chima, and he frequently reminisced about their friendship. For both of them, making new friends in the area was a challenge. These two friends had always been significant parts of their lives, but Adana and Ikena tried to move forward, carrying the memories of their old friends in their hearts. They mustered the courage and decided to move to the new house. There was both fear and hope in their hearts, new surroundings, new people, and new responsibilities. Everything was a challenge for them. When they arrived at the new house, they felt waves of joy and hope. Moving into the new house was a strange experience. Every room in the house was a new challenge for them. Adana put great effort into decorating the interior of the house. She arranged everything according to her taste and made the house a beautiful and comfortable place. Ikena had started his new job and was embracing the challenges of his new work. He tried to build relationships with his new colleagues at the company. During the initial days, he faced some difficulties, but his hard work and dedication soon put him on the path to success. Adana was also facing the new phase of her life. She found a job as a teacher at a school where she could share her love and knowledge with the children. The first few days at the school were tough for Adana, but her loving nature and understanding soon helped her win the hearts of the children. Neka and Ezina are mentioned here again. Both were concerned about their old friends and were monitoring every moment of their lives. When Adana and Ikenna moved into their new home, Neka and Izina began reporting every little detail of their lives. Adana and Ikenna adopted various ways to avoid their interference, but Neka and Izina's surveillance kept increasing. These two friends were always watching every aspect of their lives, and it was hard to discern the reasons for their curiosity. Adana and Ikenna worked hard to bring normalcy to their lives. They began decorating their home, and during this time, their loving relationship grew stronger. Ikenna got a promotion at work, and Adana built deep connections with the children at the school. Adana and Ikenna tried to build social connections in their new environment. They met with their neighbors and formed relationships with new friends. Neka and Izina's interference made their lives difficult, but Adana and Ikenna tried to maintain their independence. With Ikenna's promotion at work, Adana's deepening friendships, and the positive impact on their lives brought pleasant changes into their lives. Adana and Ikenna were determined to preserve their cultural traditions and found ways to celebrate them in their new environment. Their aspirations for the future were high. Adana and Ikenna ended with hopeful plans for the future, and the strength and love in their relationship made them capable of facing every challenge. One evening, as the sun set over their cozy home, Adana and Ikenna sat on their porch, reflecting on how far they had come. The struggles of balancing work, managing their new home, and navigating relationships had not been easy. However, their commitment to each other remained unshaken. One day, during a routine visit, Ezinwa and Neka presented an idea that would become a significant turning point for the family. Ezinwa and Neka realized their mistakes and spoke to Adana about them. They expressed their understanding of how crucial Adana and Ikenna's efforts were in rebuilding their lives and relationships. In light of this, Ezinwa suggested a family retreat. This retreat would provide everyone with an opportunity to reconnect in a neutral and peaceful environment. Despite initial reservations, Adana and Ikenna agreed. They understood the importance of this opportunity to mend lingering tensions and to create new memories. As Ikenna's health steadily improved, Adana and Ikenna decided to host a grand celebration, a festival of life, love, and family. They invited everyone who had been part of their journey, from old friends and family to new acquaintances and neighbors. The celebration was a vibrant affair, filled with music, dance, and laughter. Adana's paintings adorned the venue, reflecting the beauty and strength of their journey. Ikenna read excerpts from his book, sharing their story with those present. Ezinwa and Neka, now fully embracing the couple's independence and growth, gave heartfelt speeches that brought tears to many eyes. They acknowledged the struggles and triumphs and expressed their deep pride in how Adana and Ikenna had navigated their path. As the evening wore on, under a sky filled with stars, Adana and Ikenna stood together, hand in hand. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led them to this moment, a moment of fulfillment, surrounded by love, and filled with the promise of a bright future. The celebration marked not just the end of one chapter but the beginning of a new one. It was a chapter filled with hope, resilience, and the unbreakable bond that Adana and Ikenna had forged through their trials. In the end, their story was not just about the challenges they faced but about the love that sustained them. It was a love that had been tested, refined, and ultimately grew stronger with each passing day. Adana and Ikenna's journey was a testament to the power of love, the importance of family, and the resilience of the human spirit. As they looked out over the faces of those they loved, Adana and Ikenna knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, with the same courage and commitment that had brought them this far. Their story, like the stars above, would continue to shine brightly, a beacon of hope and inspiration for all who knew them.